One, there we are. Good morning, everybody. Good Saturday morning. I'm not going to say happy Saturday because we've got some big things to talk about. Apologies for my morning voice. I just woke up not too long ago and I'm still getting everything orchestrated right now, getting things all set up. But we're going to be tracking Hurricane Erin as it pretty much receives the go-ahead to be upgraded to Category 5 intensity. Hurricane reconnaissance aircraft are in the system right now doing their circling, taking their observations, and it's only a matter of moments now where we get a special advisory and National Hurricane Center upgrades this to a Category 5. There should be a special advisory coming out. There has to be. They have it hovering at 145 miles an hour, 935 central pressure, but recon aircraft are absolutely finding very, very, very cut and dried details and observed phenomena to suggest that this is a Category 5 hurricane. So good morning, everybody. Good morning, good morning. We're going to be covering the current conditions, the current state of Hurricane Erin. Maybe we'll talk a little bit about what's coming up in terms of the tropics because we have a couple other things that I'm monitoring, but we're only going to focus on what's happening down there with Erin right now, so bear with me. If you have questions about the United States or anything like that, just hold tight with me. We're going to talk all about that towards the back end, but here is Hurricane Erin right now. And the key concern here is not necessarily the rapid intensification, is the fact that we have jogged a little bit more than just a nudge to the west. We're now moving due west, and we've moved due west for an extended period of time now. If I rewind the clock here, when we underwent a little bit of what looked to be an eye wall replacement cycle early on this morning, I'll stop the clock here. This is 6:15 Zulu, so this is very early this morning. This is about, let me see, that'd be about 2 o'clock in the morning. Since about 2 o'clock this morning up until the current state of the satellite, this has not stopped moving due west. We have definitely jogged far towards the west. Let me refresh the satellite image. I sometimes can't stand how tropical tidbits will lag out in the very end of it. There you go. I'll go ahead and draw the extrapolated track for you here. We'll go back to that 2 o'clock, and you can see from here, fast forward the loop, we have definitely moved at a trajectory more west-southwest at approximately 260 degrees. There goes my epic pen. In usual fashion, we're moving at about 260 degrees westward. West-southwestward, I would almost argue, putting a lot more inclement conditions for the Leeward Islands to the north here. St. Kitts and Nevis, Antigua, Barbuda, Anguilla especially. You guys are receiving your tropical storm conditions, I would imagine, right now. Very tight buzzsaw-like system there. There's your core. There's your eye wall convection. It's a very consolidated system. This is what we were worried about when I did my last update and why I'd mentioned previously that the ceiling for this is absolutely a Category 5. No, T.G. Herman, I would argue this is a little bit more than a wobble. This is not a wobble right now. Not a wobble. A wobble would be if we saw it do this, for example. We saw it moving west-northwest, bounce to the south, and then continue. There goes my epic pen again. If we saw it come to the north, bounce to the south, and then rapidly start to gain latitude again, that would be a wobble. But right now, if you were to extrapolate the track, we've moved at least a fair bit towards the west. I'd argue anywhere between 75 to 100 miles at this point. I mean, we started at 61 west longitude, to put it into perspective, and we're approaching 63 west longitude. That's 2 lines of longitude in the north, or when it comes to the westward progression of it. And again, I apologize, folks. I literally just woke up not too long ago, so forgive me if my voice sounds a little wobbly, just like the system here. But you can see here, even on our True Color Visible satellite shot over on College of DuPage, their website. I like using their satellite parameters a little bit more sometimes than Tropical Tidbits. You can see from the start of the loop, we've gone from, and I'll draw the track for you. This is not a bit of a wobble. We've gone from here to here. So we're definitely moving generally westward, and we're starting to see even more pronounced rings of thunderstorms really wrapping around the west and southern base of this system. We've got very heavy thunderstorms progressing through the Leeward Islands right now. St. Kitts and Nevis, Anguilla, looks like Antigua and Barbuda are also seeing it. The U.S. British Virgin Islands, the islands in between there, I forget the names, they're also going to start to get into the outer bands of it. We had a feeder band move through Puerto Rico. It's continuing to move through the southwest quadrant of the island, getting ready to exit left, or stage left, And then we're going to have more building in as we go through the day today, especially if this southward progression continues over the next hour or two, especially since we're still moving at a steady click of around 15 to, oh no, we're moving 20 miles an hour. So we've actually picked up a little bit of forward momentum as well. But this system is definitely a force to be reckoned with. And as you all can see, I have the shirt on. I have the shirt on. This is not a joke this time. This is the real deal. We have a borderline category 5 out there. Forgive me 1 second. We have a borderline category 5 out there right now, and I want to pull up my radar Omega. I want to see if I still have this plugged in. I have not used this in a very, very long time. I just have to figure out where I switch. There we go, single site radar. Let's go down to Puerto Rico and see what we can see on radar Omega. There we go. So you can see the rain bands are very scattered, which is good news. We're not seeing a piling up of rainfall, but we're already seeing really good banding moving through Puerto Rico. There goes that first one I'd pointed out on satellite. It's starting to move off towards the southwest. We've got a little bit of showers and storms near Arecibo. San Juan starting to get in on the north side of the island there. We'll take you in for a bird's eye view, get in real close. Let's see if I can find where my family is out there. Let's see if I can see it. So we've got San Juan up to the north. There's Bayamon. There's the airport. I've flown into there once. I'm pretty sure they are down in the... Maybe they'll tune in this morning. We'll have to see. I'm not going to try to bullseye it. But there is the eye of the storm. You can see it on satellite. Very small pinhole eye. It's just now making it into radar range, albeit the reflectivities are very bent because the radar beam is probably missing a huge chunk of it. But that is generally moving towards the west-southwest. If I can get my Epic Pen, I'm about to delete this app and find something different. Getting a little sick and tired of it flying around everywhere. So there's your center, and it's moving generally this way. We'll have to watch the radar as we go through this live stream and see if we can detect when it starts to gain latitude again. But it entered the radar there, and it ended there. So we're moving at approximately 260 degrees if you were to look at this on a compass rose. Oh, SFL or South Florida Train Spotter, this is definitely going to be a Cat 5, without a question. Without question. Even if the winds at their next advisory at 11 o'clock have not caught up to the rapid deepening that we're seeing in the central pressure, then it'll eventually make it to that Category 5 threshold. We should only be within a couple miles an hour away from it actually achieving that intensity. And then while we're here, we'll go ahead and mention a couple things. We have this other area of interest here on the National Hurricane Center's homepage with a 10 for 10 shot over the next 2 to 7 days. Potential for some more homegrown slop to develop off the mid-Atlantic coast. Very interesting. This has been a repetitive feature, a repetitive source region for much of the hurricane season, both in June and July. Obviously, here is Erin with the 8 a.m. advisory falling rapidly behind where we are currently. And then within the next day or two, I can't imagine we get out of the weekend without another area of interest down here. And that's the one we want to pay attention to. And then, folks, if you're in the chat right now, if I could have you do me a huge favor. Please do me a huge favor. Hit that like button. We got to get the views up. And I know that if we tickle the algorithm via hitting that like button right now, we can get this information out to more folks. That would be very beneficial for sure. Very beneficial for sure. So let's get those likes up. We're only at 23. I have a little over 200 people watching right now. I would like if every single person in there could please hit that like button. I want to get this information out to folks because not only is this going to be a pretty big adjustment on their current track, it's kind of going against what we have in terms of track guidance as well. In fact, I forgot that we can pull that up here on Weather Nerds. I always forget that we can take advantage of that. Let me see if I can get us... I might have to adjust the screen a little bit because I know that this computer or this overlay is kind of lopsided. Oh, no, I guess you guys can kind of see it okay. Let me see. There's full screen. There we go. Let me go ahead and bring myself back up. I have a storyboard called Weird Page Angle with Face. That's what the storyboard is called. So let me see. Where are our regions? There we go. Let's go to North Atlantic. We'll take a big zoom in on Hurricane Erin. Very good system out there. It's a very healthy system. Now let's put on our track ensembles and take a look at what they're showing. And there you go. You can see we are definitely moving again to the left of all of our track guidance. I'll take you in for a closer look. And if we continue to move towards the west, we're way outside of where all of our ensembles initialized at 6 Zulu. Obviously, we're well beyond 12Z now. We're about 1422 Zulu per the local time here in Central Florida, so we should be getting some new information, hopefully over on Tropical Tidbits or somewhere I can pull that information up. But I'll zoom us down in even further for a bird's eye view of the center there, and we are far to the left of where our ensembles are grouped up, and the ensembles are doing a very terrible job of highlighting what our intensity is doing right now. Most of these members in here indicate anywhere between a Cat 1 to a Cat 3 hurricane, and we're about to surpass the Category 5 threshold. We're, for all intents and purposes, seeing a rerun of Hurricane Beryl last year and Hurricane Milton in the Gulf. Earlier last night, I want to say that when we went to bed, looking at the satellite image, it genuinely looked like Milton, but upside down, because we had that convection firing off on one of the outflow channels to the southwest of the storm. And if you all remember looking at Milton's satellite imagery, we had that tight core, very well-defined pinhole eye, and we had that extra area of diffluent flow and outflow thunderstorms firing to the northeast of it. So we're definitely moving to the left of our ensemble guidance. Let me pull up our GEFS ensembles and see if they're doing any better for us. Let me turn off the Euro ensembles. We'll leave this satellite image up, and we'll turn on the GEFS ensembles for 6 Zulu and see if either one of these computer models are doing us any justice. No, we're even further to the south of that track guidance. So this is why this is a huge learning lesson for a lot of us, and why for a long while I'd been mentioning that we want to pay attention to this in real time. We're going to be splitting hairs when it comes down to the final hoorah with this system. I'm seeing reports in the chat that we're finding 919 millibars in the center of circulation with some of the observations that are coming out. Let's see here. Let me look here. This doesn't look like they hit the core with this dropson. It does not look like it. It looks like they're not in the core right now, at least according to this dropson data. Here's your latest outlook in terms of your winds. You can see in the center, we've already deepened between 936 to 926 millibars. We're still explosively intensifying right now, which is not a good sign. And, typically what I will say as a positive with these types of systems, usually when you undergo very explosive development like this or explosive intensification, you tend to get some really raggedy wobbles in the way the storm tracks, because if you think about it, you have a lot of momentum, just general mass within the center of these storms. That's another thing too. With hurricanes, the reason you get the spin has a lot to do with just the general physics of what's going on inside the storm. It isn't just this neat phenomena that when you start to deepen a low pressure, you end up with what looks like you're flushing a toilet. No, it's because of the conservation of angular momentum and centrifugal force. Force being the key word here, that you get these very, very fast spinning storms. That's why when you look at them on radar or satellite, you hear me mention we're starting to spin up faster and faster, which means we're only going to continue to deepen down as we do so. And in this case, we've seen a wobble to the west and southwest, and it has not picked up its trajectory at all just yet. I want to take a look at what the mean layer winds are doing. I hope models did not severely... Okay, so there's our weakness. The weakness is there, but we're not moving towards it, at least not right now. There's your call. You can see the call. This is a textbook call right there, ladies and gentlemen, right there. There's the call, the neutral point, and the winds. That's where we should be going. But this is your 700 to 850 millibar flow, your mid-level flow. Let's go up because we have a very powerful storm now. Let us see what we're doing all the way up to the jet level. Oh, well, that's... Okay. Apologies for the silence. I'm just not sure if our models did a very good job of capturing this eastward nudge that our subtropical ridging is doing over the western Atlantic there. That does not look like it was modeled very well at all. If you go all the way from pretty much every level of the environment, from 5,000 feet all the way up to nearly the tropopause, 250 millibars. Let me go to 200 to 700. Yeah, hold on a second. I got to look at satellite for the United States. Bear with me. I want to take a look at what our satellite is doing. Not our satellite, excuse me, what our water vapor imagery looks like over the United States. Do a little bit of analysis with you. There's our AOY right there, by the way. That's our yellow blip that's on National Hurricane Center's chart. It's underneath the same anticyclone that initially had our original tropical wave way, way, way back when, moving through southern and western Florida. Now it's back off to the east. We're going to take a bit of a deep dive into some model data because I want to see how we're initializing in comparison to what our current analysis is showing over the Atlantic Ocean. Yeah, so see, we have it there. It's there. It's just not very strong. And our models are still showing this should be moving west-northwest at about 280, if not 290 degrees. You zoom down in for a closer look on our GFS, for example, and the initialized conditions do show our Atlantic subtropical ridge extending towards the east coast of the United States and a large area of ridging building up over the Gulf in the eastern U.S. That's that negative PNA. It's also showing an extension of our troughing and our upper low up over the North Atlantic, this feature here. This is what's helping to create a bit of a weakness. I'm trying not to sneeze. So now let's go back to satellite. So this occluded low here is definitely progressing. It's not increasing in amplitude. It is increasing. We do have a jet max digging in the base of that trough there, helping to support this comma feature, but it's moving towards the south and east. So the GFS, I don't know if it's doing a very good job of showing that. I mean, it kind of is, but I think we're progressing a little bit further than that. I'm going to use tropical tidbits. I'm going to open up the area of observation, the AOI. We're going to go Atlantic wide and look at the water vapor there. So you can still see we have really good ridging to the north of this feature. You can see it 1,000 miles away on this satellite image. Let me take you full screen. We'll do the weird overlay. There we go. And then I'll leave my face off for just a second, and I'll zoom us in some more. If I can get my mouse to cooperate. There we go. So in all reality, we still have very broad ridging out over the Atlantic. You can kind of see it where your clouds are very scarce. You can see we have higher pressure building in to the upper periphery of, there goes my Epic pen, getting real tired of that. We have higher pressure and subsidence digging into the MDR, and then you can see an extension of that to the north of where Erin is right there. There's all your high pressure ridging. It's very elongated. So we have a trough there. You can see a cold core mature system up here. You can kind of see it in the low level clouds on the infrared. We have another area right there, definitely frontal. Definitely a strong frontal system right through there. Here is the extension of our anticyclone over the eastern United States. So yeah, the analysis is doing a fantastic job of showing you where the neutral point would be. Because if you draw it in using different colors, there's your anticyclone. Here is that cold pocket supporting that mature system, the frontal system moving through the not the United States, you moving through the mid-latitude Atlantic, the upper subtropics there. Then you have a bit of an extension. I'll draw it in pink once again. We have another extension of our Atlantic ridge there. So yeah, your escape point, just as we analyzed earlier, is right through there. There's that call. Now you can kind of see what I mean when I say COL, the call. That's your neutral point in the winds. There's your anticyclone coming off the United States. You have your cold pocket upper low right here with the jet max digging into it. You have your central Atlantic high pressure. You have Erin right there. Even from this perspective, you can see that Erin just refuses. It refuses to pass that 20-degree north latitude box. It tried to earlier this morning right there where my little yellow tick there is. It tried to pass it there, but ever since then, look at how we refuse to go above 20 degrees north latitude. It's 10:32 right now. Let me bring my face back up. We should be getting an advisory from National Hurricane Center any moment now. They gotta do an update. They gotta issue a special advisory. I would hope that they do. No offense to National Hurricane Center, because I understand the weight on their shoulders, especially with everything that's probably gone on in the background in the state of politics right now. However, we should probably be a little bit more at haste with trying to pump out one of those special advisories. Yesterday, I was talking with meteorologist Michelle Morgan over at News 6, and we were discussing that perhaps they didn't immediately upgrade it to a hurricane this time yesterday morning was because we didn't have anybody in immediate harm's way with this system. However, now we do, and I'm a little astonished that we're not trying to, just get the information out there. There was our attempt at trying to cross 20 latitude right there, and you can see it looks like what happened was immediately upon the conclusion of our eye wall replacement cycle, look at that very powerful burst of convection that immediately wrapped around the west and southwest side of the eye there. That's what initiated, look at that. And now we have convection really firing on all cylinders. So it looks like that explosive hot tower right there, boom, that's what initiated this tug towards the west. And we have not stopped moving towards the west for a while. We're getting ready to cross 63 west longitude. Let's take us back to the radar, see if we have anything new. There's your center on the right-hand side of your screen there. I hope you all can see it clearly. Yeah, we're still moving westward. I'm watching the radar extremely closely to see when it is that we're going to start to make that turn. Starts out here, ends there. I'll go ahead and redraw that just in case. Let me wait for the center to come on screen. There it is. And we end the loop right there. So yeah, about 260 to 270 degrees. That's where we're moving right now. Good morning, everybody, by the way. Good morning to everybody who's in the chat right now. Let's nudge the like button. Let's nudge the living daylights out of that like button, please. Let's get some more folks in here. I don't know who else is streaming right now, but I want to bring all the live conditions. We're not going to talk models. We're not going to talk anything specific right now. I just want us to focus on what's happening right now. That's why as soon as I rolled out of bed this morning and I looked at the satellite and the update with my eyes like this, I'm like, I knew. The new advisory is out. Everyone's telling me in the chat. Let's take a look. 11 a.m. We're at, they put 923 millibars, 155 mile an hour winds. Man, I would just go ahead and say 157. If I'm not mistaken, they're finding winds anywhere in between 170 to 175 knots at 700 millibars. And when you take the equation when you put the equation into account, the momentum transfer difference between your mid-levels and your low levels, we used to do that a lot in Air Force weather because we'd be calculating winds coming off the Rocky Mountains down to what we would feel at the surface. There's a percentage of those winds. And when you take about 20-30% of that into account, you mix those down to the surface, you're probably just about at Category 5 intensity. Let me take a look real quick. I'm going to do a little calculation. And we're also over water, so we don't have to take into account frictional forces like in rough terrain. In rough terrain, you're going to see a dissipation of the mixing of the winds. So I'm going to just go 20%. Okay, so, I'll give them credit. Once you do the equation, you're at about 150 to 155 miles an hour down to, knots. Actually, you know what? Pardon me, I just realized knots. So yeah, never mind. Even if you take 20% of your 700 millibar wind flow that you're observing, which I heard anywhere between 170 to 175 knots, you take 20% of that. 20%. And you multiply that by 170 to 175 and you subtract the difference, you're still left with 145, 150 knot, which would translate to 155, 160 mile an hour core of the storm there. So, at this point, 155 miles an hour, if there was a key takeaway from that, folks, even though it doesn't officially constitute a Category 5, it goes without saying, 923 millibars in the center of circulation, you're going to see Category 5 impacts. Thankfully, we are still on the weaker side of this system, though. We still have that working with us. So that is a huge plus, an enormous plus. If you were to take a look at the wind field on their advisory, I'm sure, let's go over to the graphics, and you take a look at the surface winds, you can see that we are far away even from the tropical storm force winds because of how tightly wound this system is. And in fact, I'm very astonished that they have just a couple of our Leeward Island neighbors down there under a tropical storm watch. I would argue we may want to expand that just a little bit because some of these feeder bands are going to be on the sportier side without question. But yeah, this satellite image right here definitely does a good job of showing that westward movement. Not a wobble anymore. That's definitely not a wobble. You start the satellite there and you end the satellite loop. I want to see what the time frame on this is. So we start at 10Z, which is about 6 in the morning, and we end at 14:30Z, which is 10:30. So in the span of 4 hours, we've gone that far towards the west. That's not a wobble anymore. If you look at wobbles in tropical cyclone tracks, they look kind of like a seismometer. If you've ever watched an earthquake on a seismograph, they go like this. Or think of it like a heart rate monitor at the hospital. Beep, beep, like that. That would be more of a wobble or a tick. This is definitely a shift west. And we're still moving west, too. We haven't started to exactly wobble back towards the north just yet. Going to come back to our radar imagery. So Puerto Rico is doing okay right now. Same with the islands just to the immediate east, the US BVI. Looks like our Leeward Islands down there are not doing too bad right now either, albeit we're not seeing a tremendous amount of the radar data because we are so far away from the San Juan radar. But regardless, we're doing okay. It doesn't look like we have any real sporty squalls moving through. It looks like earlier this morning, the western side of Puerto Rico saw some very heavy rainfall. It does look like very soon, though, we're going to see a stronger push of thunderstorms and heavier rain moving into our islands east off the immediate coastline of Puerto Rico. See what we got. Let's do some justice for our folks out there. I'm not going to just keep shooting blanks. So yeah, the U.S. British Virgin Islands are about to get in on some hefty thunderstorm action. St. Kitts and Nevis, Anguilla are doing okay right now. Same with Antigua and Barbuda. If we can see them on this radar image, it looks like we are just outside of being able to see them on radar. But again, one very huge positive, and I want to express that because I know there's probably a lot of stress out there right now and probably a lot of anxiety. We're still on the weaker side of the system, so we have to take our wins where we can get them. We're moving against the environmental flow on this side of the system, so any of your westerly winds and northwesterly winds are going to be going against your mid and upper level flow, which means we're going to see some weakening. Believe it or not, if you oppose winds, even though you don't have anything physically there, you're still going to encounter friction. Porky Pig with you this morning. Even though you have straight line winds moving within the atmosphere and there are no physical barriers, you will still encounter friction when you oppose the winds like so. Think of it like two football players. They're running full speed at each other. They're not going to go one way or another. They're going to smash into one another, even though they're running full steam ahead with nothing to slow down their forward progress. So again, we got to take our wins where we can get them in a situation like this. Watching that radar closely. Mike, good morning, my buddy from New Orleans. I definitely would not go as far as Katrina. No, 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 no. Definitely don't want to start going that far. Right now, we're just seeing a nudge towards the west. We're still expecting the turn. What we'll have to watch in real time now, and I'll pull up our... Oh, I thought my mouse just died. I was going to be like, really? Right now? That's not a good time to do that. What we'll have to watch, though, is this eastward expansion in our ridging over the United States. So take a look. We're still seeing a majority of our upper level ridging bullied off towards the west, moving towards the southern and central plains. But we also have this anticyclone here that's trying to give our area of interest off the east coast of the United States another little nudge in the intensity department. Let me move this over to the right a little bit so you all can see a little bit better. And I'll use a different color. There's our shortwave and our upper low that's trying to increase the weakness in our mid to low level ridging. I would imagine our surface features are probably feeling the influence of that, and you can definitely very well see it when you look at your mid-level flow. There's your Atlantic high pressure. We're starting to see it move towards an eastward configuration over the central and eastern Atlantic. Excuse me. And then there is the neutral point right there. So we still have an escape route. We still most definitely have that escape corridor ready to rock. It's just a matter of when is Erin going to feel that effect, or is the convection in the center going to continue yanking this thing towards the west? Because one thing worth noting here is your winds in the call, obviously, that's your neutral point. So notice how the winds really dissipate. There really are no winds in the center there when it comes to the neutral point between air masses. Air mass, air mass, air mass, and then we're going to count Erin as its own air mass there, helping to increase the flow down to the south of that call. We have an acceleration in our mid-level flow just out in front of it towards the Turks and Caicos, north of the Dominican Republic and Haiti. So we want to make sure that we don't wander too far towards the west because we might catch that, and the slow turn towards the north could definitely be a little bit on the slower side. If you move up just a notch and you go to 850 to 500, you can see it a little bit clearer. We have an increase in our winds. So now not only is that going to nudge it further west, but that's also a little bit more of an increase in our wind shear. Bet you 10 to 1 if we pull up our current Atlantic wind shear, we will see that on the wind shear chart. Let me see, where do I have that? There it is. Let's open that up. There you go. So you can kind of see that we have a bit of an upper low there and an increase in our wind shear just out ahead of the system. So that's what we want to avoid because, yes, it will help to bring down the cumulonimbus tops, the hot towers that are really keeping this thing pumping at all cylinders. But at the same time, I do think that could also try to yank it a bit further towards the west. We'll have to watch that small pocket there. And this goes right back to what we've been talking about for a while now. If you've been watching this channel, whether you're new, OG, whoever, I'd been mentioning from day one, before this system even was an area of interest, that the pattern for this to move generally westward is there. We're going to be splitting hairs in terms of what smaller little incidental features like this thing and this thing do to our overall pattern. There's your anticyclone there, really trying to feed into that area of interest, and you can see the winds coming off of that thing are fairly impressive. If you look at those little orange streamlines out there, those are your winds coming off of it and the wind vector associated with your anticyclone. When I say the word vector, that just means the direction and the magnitude. It's a two-variable feature. Let's refresh Weather Nerds and go ahead and take another look. And then there you go. Well, while we're here, let me go ahead and show you a little something else as well. Let's go here. Let's take a look at our 0Z Euro ensembles. I want to show you something else. Let's go 5 days, 6 days into the future. So for those of you who are already feeling the fatigue from Hurricane Erin, this is another Lee-type scenario. This is another Lee-type scenario. I think PM mentioned it in the chat as well. I'm not saying that this is another Lee full-fledged, because obviously Hurricane Lee was very far to the north, and it didn't really influence anybody until it made its pass up towards Atlantic Canada and the Maine area, Nova Scotia, easternmost Canadian provinces. But for those of you already feeling the fatigue of having tracked Erin for the last week and some change now, that's the nature of the beast with these long track systems. We haven't had one in a while. We also have this signal that's trying to come up from a slow simmer to a boil out there in the deep tropics once again. This is about 5 days from now. We're starting to see our Euro ensembles pick up that signal. You go to about the 10-day range, and we're just about off to the races. And I do think this one we're going to also have to pay attention to, because we're going to see what happens behind Erin, a big flip of our North Atlantic oscillation into a negative phase. We're going to weaken our surface high pressure and allow our subtropical upper level ridging to really build towards the north and east, creating blockage in our jet stream, which allows tropical features, whether they be tropical waves or full-fledged hurricanes, to meander further towards the west. You can also see that on our GEFS, and this is honest, I'm getting flashbacks to Helene and Milton last year, because I remember I was on stream with you guys up in Virginia, and I'd mentioned that despite tracking Helene and that major hurricane, we have another signal that we're watching. This is our GEFS ensembles, and you can see, when my Epic Pen doesn't misbehave like that, you can see that the general clustering either shows with that negative NAO pattern, and that's the tricky part with a negative NAO. And I think the GEFS ensembles here do a fantastic job of showing that. If you all recall, in 2023, we were obviously under a strong El Nino, so we had a lot of subtropical shear from the subtropical jet just ripping across the Gulf and the Western Caribbean. As a result of that, we were in an extended negative NAO phase. So we had that blocking pattern up over the North Atlantic, and our Bermuda Azores high was stuck in the eastward configuration. That's why Lee, that's why Nigel, that's why Margot, all of them were very fast escaping storms. Even Rena, Philippe, who else was down there? Tammy was down there as well. They made the escape right around 60 west, if not east of that. And the GFS ensembles do a great job of showing that we could have a Bermuda Azores high split in half thanks to the blocking pattern, so it'll either escape quickly or it won't escape at all, and we'll have to pay attention to that. Just a little tidbit on what we're watching as we go down to, or down the road a little ways. Got to give it credit, though, where credit is due. This is a fantastic-looking storm. Looks like we're leveling out. We're no longer moving generally west-southwest. We've stopped that. We're moving westward now. Have we passed 63 degrees west yet? We're about to pass it. We're definitely moving generally westward now. We started it there, and now we're here. So we're moving at about 270 degrees. There you go. So we've saw a little bit of a bend back towards the west. Little bit of a bend, but we're still moving westward. We're definitely still moving west. This thing is not following its track guidance at all whatsoever. So, folks, do me another favor real quick, please. Let's get those likes up. We're at 182, and we have over 700 people watching right now. Thank you all for tuning in. Big welcome to everybody, old and new viewers. Thank you all so much for the attention to detail here with what we have going on with Hurricane Erin. We're here, we're back, we're rocking in the Weather Center. This is exactly what I told you all we were going to do. We were going to go stream. We were going to go full steam ahead with our content when it was warranted. And now we are very close to areas with a lot of people on them being impacted by this system. So please, let's go ahead and get those likes up. I would like for us at least to surpass oh, there we go. Thank you all. You guys are amazing. I was going to say, I'd like us to at least get past 200 likes. And there we go. We just shot up. We rapidly intensified the like button, and I really appreciate that. The only reason I'm asking for that is so YouTube will push this out to people. That's all there is to it. I promise you can ask any of my old viewers watching from 2023 all the way up to now. I'm not here for the clicks. I'm not here for the revenue. I'm here to work for you all. And the only reason I suggest and encourage hitting that like button is so YouTube pushes this out to people. Because I know we've got a lot of really good videos out there and a lot of long-form content, but we don't have any live coverage. We don't have any live coverage, and that's why I want to push this out to people, just so we can raise that awareness. And you can always count on me to get you that reliable information in a timely manner, especially when it comes time to track what could possibly be looming ahead in the tropics, as we're only going to get closer to the peak of the season. We can only go up from here. It won't be until we get into late September and October where we start to retrograde back down from the active phase. You can kind of already see our next tropical wave is coming off the coast right now. We're starting to see a bit of a reinvigoration in our monsoon trough there. ITCZ still extending down towards the south there, and our next wave is coming off right now. There's Erin, center stage, and the one thing, like I said, that I really appreciate about this wide view of the Atlantic, let me switch this to our true color, my favorite Favorite overlay. I love True Color. True Color is the best way to just kind of see what the eyes can see. Let's do some analysis together. So you can see we have an eastern configuration of our Atlantic high pressure. There goes my pen again. Good Lord, I'm going to have to draw it fast. Let me see if I can beat the lag. There we go. Okay. So this is our current configuration of our surface and mid-level high pressure out there. It's very easy to see it on your True Color Visible because wherever you see the lack of cloud cover and a lack of moisture usually suggests sinking. That's where your higher pressure is. If you look down towards the intertropical convergence zone and the monsoon trough extension off of Africa, you can see a combination of open cell cumulus and closed cell stratocumulus, both of which indicate dry conditions. And in fact, we still have a lot of dust out there. If you look, we have the continental dry air and the dust coming off of Africa still traveling with Hurricane Erin. You can see we have a little bit of that dust signature on the north side of it still bending back around. It's just unfortunate we have so much convection and deep layer convection at that in the center that none of that dry air is going to get in there. That would honestly be something as a last-ditch effort Mother Nature could maybe try to pepper into that storm to try to bring it down. I think that ship had sailed 36 hours ago, and we woke up yesterday morning after our Thursday night live stream. We saw a little bit of that dry, dusty air work its way into the core, deplete the thunderstorms, and unfortunately the system bounced back really fast. There's definitely a chance that it hits the Carolinas. I'm not going to say that it's a high chance, but there is definitely a chance. For a while now, I wanted to emphasize that Bermuda, the Mid-Atlantic, particularly the Cape Hatteras area of the eastern United States, as well as the Turks and Caicos and our Greater Antilles from about Haiti eastward, need to pay attention to this. Because we were always, even when the storm was a wave back here, we were always under the impression on this channel, and the message I wanted to communicate was we were either going to thread the needle just to the west of Bermuda, or we were going to scrape against the East Coast. That was always our long-term projection. Always our long-term projection. You can check out older videos to verify I'm not just changing my info at the last second because we have so many people watching. No, can promise you that from day one, when this system first was preparing to splash down, given the pattern that we've had in play since May, leading up to now, it was very clear we were going to be somewhere in through, good Lord, this pen is driving me up a wall. We were going to be somewhere west of Bermuda or somewhere in through here. Most definitely. And the fact that we are erring on the western side of that swath I have drawn with my Epic pen tells me we still have to keep our eyes open from the Turks and Caicos, all of our friends in the Bahamas, and up the East Coast. It ain't over till it's over. The last hurricane season taught us that for sure. Hopefully it does. That's another thing, too. Florida Girl 904 says, WTF, did you seriously just say that? This is no threat to the United States. Well, technically speaking, you're wrong in saying that from the get-go, because if you want to wander out to the beach while this is passing up our East Coast and get pulled in by a rip current and some rough surf out there, that's technically a threat. That's why National Hurricane Center now includes rip current forecasts and conditions in their graphics overlay. So technically speaking, even if we were full confident that this is going to turn right far away, we're still going to feel impacts and threats here in the United States. We're just not going to get any of the wind and rain from it. There's a wide variety of impacts with these systems. That's also why in the last couple of videos I've put out, if you all check those out, I have 2 additional videos before this live stream. I started out with 98L. I know that Erin is the hot topic, but I started out with 98L over southern Texas because it was an immediate threat. Oh, but it's not an organized system. What's wrong with that? Well, because we still have a lot of heavy rainfall and conditions that could ramp up over southern Texas, especially with what happened earlier back in the day with Tropical Storm Barry, the remnants of Barry at that. And no, wrong. Don't put words in my mouth, please. Politely, don't put words in my mouth. I didn't say it will. It will. No, someone asked, is there a chance that this could still hit North Carolina? And I said, yes, there is still a chance. If you take a look at our ensembles here, now we'll go ahead and start to deep dive a little bit into the model data, just a little bit, and then we'll come back to live data. We'll give it some time to percolate and do its thing out there. If we keep watching it 24/7, it's like when you look at yourself in the mirror and you're expecting to see yourself lose weight. You keep checking your scale and you keep looking at the mirror 5 different times in an hour, you're not going to see any change. So we'll step away from that and we'll come back to it here in a moment. We'll start out with our GEFS ensembles and I'll walk you through it. We'll take a look at our 6Z. In fact, we'll go to 0Z. 0Z will have all of our fresh data put in. It won't just be a continuity run. And if you notice, we still have an enormous swath once we get beyond 25 degrees latitude. And on top of that, we also have to recognize we're not even in the track guidance right now. We don't even have that in the track guidance currently. So that's also a bit of a problem. We should probably try to take what we have real time and nudge this off towards the left just a little bit to accommodate for the fact that we're starting outside and west of all of our model guidance. That's something we can do in real time and adjust. And if you notice where the track puts it there, the left side of our ensemble swath there does include, again, that Cape Hatteras area of North Carolina. So while I'm not fully anticipating this system's going to carve up into the mid-Atlantic and full steam ahead, make landfall like some of our hurricanes have passed, we can't take our foot off the gas just yet. Central Floridians, Georgia, even South Carolina, I would confidently say we can kind of let off the throttle a little bit and not worry too much. And I don't want anybody worrying out there. Right now, the only folks who should be really concerned are the folks in immediate proximity of this system. That's why we're doing the live stream right now. But in terms of where it's going to go, I saw some folks in Bermuda here as well. Bermuda is here. They're still well within that right side swath of all of our major hurricane ensemble members there. And this can still come very close to the Cape Hatteras area of North Carolina. And there are a lot of people out there in easternmost North Carolina. And I have family only about an hour or two inland from the coastline in North Carolina. And I was just in Virginia near the Chesapeake Bay area in Norfolk a little over a month ago. There's a lot of people in a lot of major areas out there. So the fact that we have this system taking an outside westward bias, hopefully, as PM mentioned in the chat, once we do feel that weakness, since this system is so intense, it'll rapidly lift off towards the north. And I know a few of our model solutions actually suggested that'll be almost a full, strong right-hand turn towards the north. That'd be best case scenario. Once you break down the western or the eastern extent of that high pressure, it'll immediately just kind of make a right-hand turn. If you all remember Franklin back in 2023, that's exactly what that system did. Franklin started out as an Eastern Caribbean threat, and then once that weakness opened up, it literally took a 90-degree turn and moved off towards the north, avoiding any further impacts for our Greater Antilles in the Caribbean. I remember covering that storm, and I remember discussing it because that was when we got our start back in August of 2023, when this channel first was born. I remember mentioning that Franklin was projected to move westward. It's very interesting. It's going to make a right turn, and that was right about when Idalia was starting to develop, and it also felt that negative NAO trend up towards Florida. So right now, it's not showing that substantial right turn, but our ensemble swath, as I've been mentioning, still doesn't make me comfortable enough to say that nobody's going to get hit by this thing. And don't forget, we do have people on the islands, okay? We can't just focus on the United States. We have a lot of people still in a path of this system. So we can't just focus on the United States, and we definitely cannot call it a fish storm. I'm going to dig my heels in and die on that hill. This is not a fish storm. This is not a fish storm. 157%, 150,000%, okay? The purest definition of a fish storm is a hurricane that does not cross 60 west. The fact that we have a major hurricane, a borderline Cat 5, if not a Category 5, truthfully, to immediate north of our Leeward Islands down there, not a fish storm anymore. Not a fish storm. So we got to be careful throwing that terminology around out there. I take that very serious. I do. Because far too often do I even see trained meteorologists saying, oh, it's a fish storm, even though it's right off the coast of a major populated area. That, to me, is not a fish storm. If anything suddenly goes wrong, as we know can happen in the world of weather, that's not a good thing. So now you can also see as you go beyond the 7 to 10 day mark, there goes your signal for the next feature. That next one is definitely gaining some confidence in our computer models, both ensembles especially, and our long-range deterministic models, which leads me to Let's go to Weather Bell, and we'll take a look at our Euro and Euro AI ensembles. We'll start off with the AI ensembles. We haven't really taken a look. There we go. Let me move you back to the left-hand side. We haven't really taken a look at this. I haven't looked at it too much because the AI model needs to kind of rebuild a little bit of confidence with me. I'm not a fan of it, how much it whiffed on our first couple tropical waves. So see, the AI model still has a pretty large swath, although I'm liking the confidence here. I definitely like the fact that we've closed the gap a little bit. This model is infamous for all of its members showing enormous dispersion west and east, unless there's a storm right down pretty much on your area. And this is also something that we had mentioned a video or two ago. I can't remember if it was yesterday's video or the day before yesterday, but I'd mentioned to you all that it's probably going to come down to when we're within that zero barrier area, 24 hours, if not 36 to maybe 48 hours, 1 to 2 days away from a general area. Will we see our ensembles and our models finally get a good handle on it because of the evolving pattern we have down the road from this feature? And then also, as we go forward in time, what I want you to watch is this. Let me change the color so you all can see it a little bit better. I'll use black. I also want you to see this eastern configuration of our Atlantic high pressure there. Watch what happens once the ensembles for Erin move off towards the north and east, instigating that negative NAO setup. Starts to bring it back towards the west and bring another system that could either mimic Erin's track or possibly bring it further to the left of that swath. And see, this is what I meant also, by the way. The AI ensembles, I do not like the dispersion here. That does not give me confidence in a track at all. You literally have ensemble members saying it's going to escape by about 55 west, or it can end up near the Yucatan. That doesn't give me a very confident signal at all. Now let's head over to our Euro ensembles, the good old-fashioned EPs. We haven't looked at this at all just yet. We'll take a look at the SIGZ so we can get a better idea of what it's thinking for Erin. Still a large speed and directional spread there. A lot of hurricane or major hurricane models there as well. And then here goes our European ensembles percolating with that next feature. This model doing a better job of showing the sweeping in on the backside of Erin, that high pressure coming back over the central Atlantic. So that's why, once again, off the immediate future, I want our Leeward and our full Lesser Antilles, to tell you the truth, to watch this. All right, what's happening in the chat? I'm going to have to take myself away from computer data because there's a lot of people going back and forth. Who is saying that I'm hyping this up? I'm literally not saying anything wrong right now or anything bad. Oh, there it is. I can view it. Let me see here. Apologies for the quiet right now. I'm looking at the chat. I wouldn't necessarily say that anybody out there is the best. Nobody is the best, to tell you the truth. And I'm a very fervent believer in that. There is no such thing as the best. There are some folks from ages of past who have a proven track record for sure, but at the same token, for anyone to say the best, you're lying to yourself, in my humble opinion. In my humble opinion, no one is the best at forecasting the weather. That's why I love meteorology so much. You're always going to be learning. You're always going to be learning, and I love a challenge. So if there's something new I can learn, that's amazing. That's also why I got into personal training, because physiology and exercise science are constantly evolving with, strides in technology. But anyways, let's go back to some model data. Let's go back to 0Z. I haven't had a chance to look at this because I haven't even personally had my coffee just yet. A little bit of an uptick in our Euro ensemble, showing something headed towards the southeast or the eastern United States. Enormous dispersion, though. Enormous dispersion. So that's not a confidence signal at all whatsoever. Zero Z still has an enormous directional and speed swath on this as well. You can see some members putting it right over Bermuda, others coming dangerously close to that Cape Hatteras area of North Carolina. So I'll say it again for folks who might be getting confused in the chat. I'm not saying that it's going to hit anybody. I personally am not comfortable immediately saying it's not going to hit anybody because we still have a huge dispersion in our track and this system is not behaving itself. Someone in the chat just mentioned that it's starting to turn back towards the north. Let's come back to our radar and take a look at that center. There we go. Yep, it does. It looks like we're starting to see a bit more of that west-northwest tick once again in the center. Hopefully that's not just a wobble. We'll go ahead and draw the track. Once it comes back into range, comes in right there, and we end there. So still moving westward, but it does look like it's trying to bounce towards the north now, which could be a good sign. Let's get this back on track. Let's bring us back up to the satellite, take a look at a looping image together. No, actually, it doesn't look like it's moving to the north just yet. It's hard to tell. It kind of looks like it might be going into another... No, I can't tell if the eye is just decreasing in diameter or if it's going to enter another eye wall replacement cycle. There's definitely something going on towards the end of the satellite loop, though, because there was a sudden slowing in its forward progress right there. It does seem like the eye is shrinking in diameter just a little bit more, which means we're not done with this rapid intensification phase. But if we can start to get it to lift towards the north now, that is excellent news for all of our friends down here. Because you can see on the satellite image, our greatest amount of wind and rain is right there. This is a tiny, almost Milton-esque system. It takes up just these 1x1 grid boxes of your latitude and longitude, and maybe 2 of them at the best, but definitely looks good on satellite. This is that classic buzzsaw system. All this is spiral and feeder banding that's going on out here. Your core of the storm is where that little yellow or pink box is. I don't know why I was going to say that. I was looking at the satellite colors. So as long as this doesn't continue further westward or dip southwest again, if we can start to get it to lift towards the north now, that is great, great, great news for everybody down there. Very, very close call, but that is where your strongest stuff is. There's obviously the eye and the eye wall right in through here. Still shrinking in diameter. Do we still have recon aircraft in the system right now? Let me close this and pull back up our tropical tidbits. It's not what I wanted. Says that they're in storm, but I haven't seen an update on this. It looks like they're getting ready to make another pass through the center. They're doing their thing up there. Very impressive. Very, very, very impressive. Let's switch over to our true color viz. Actually, we'll go back here for our true color viz. Do we have a sub-regional section that we can look at? There we go. Even better. Can get in real close, up close and personal with this system. And let me turn on our latitude and longitude. There we go. So we can see the grid boxes. Yeah, hopefully that is a turn and not just a wobble. That looks like a wobble, and our eye has definitely shrunk in diameter. A noticeable shrink, too. Noticeable shrinking, which means, yeah, we've probably just hit Category 5 intensity if we haven't already. National Hurricane Center's advisory tops us out at 155 miles an hour, but I would argue that this... There we go, sorry. Let me shrink this back down again because now we're a little too big on the overlay there. So now you all can see it. Yeah, so we're starting to finally gain latitude. We're still not over the 20-degree latitude line, though. We're still hovering just to the south of that. 20 degrees is the dashed line just to the immediate north of where the center is. So we're still wobbling south and west of the track guidance. It does. It definitely looks like Milton. This is very Milton-esque. Esque, very Milton-esque, especially yesterday. While we're watching the satellite image, there you go, as a matter of fact, right here. It was this image there, right there, where I was having flashbacks to tracking Hurricane Milton last year, because there's the core of the storm, and you can see that outflow quadrant really building some good thunderstorms. And I had said it was literally an upside-down Hurricane Milton, or I should say a right-side-up Hurricane Milton, because Hurricane Milton was the one that was upside down and even moving backwards, so to speak, even though that was a very traditional track for hurricanes in October. See right there, extremely reminiscent of Hurricane Milton, only this one had everything biased towards the northeast because that's where the environmental flow was tugging it. You go back to your true color visible satellite, and it's literally flipped. Literally flipped. Beautiful storm. Dangerous storm, but I have to say, it's a beautiful storm. I admire these very symmetrical and powerful hurricanes on satellite. Yeah, I don't know. It's either continuing to deepen or we're going to hit an eye wall replacement cycle. Although at the same time, what could also be happening too is we're getting into the point with the sun angle where we're not seeing the shadow of the eye anymore. I just realized that too. It's approaching 11:30. So at this point in the day, the sun angle is about to be the highest in the sky. So at least on visible satellite, we might not seeing eye wall shrinkage, but we also could just be where the sun is now vertically stacked over the center. And so we're losing the shadow. We're losing that perspective of it. But I'm pretty sure even on the infrared, it kind of looked like this feature was starting to shrink that eye down just a little bit more. Yeah, the eye is definitely shrinking. Even when you look at infrared, it's very difficult for you to see. Blink and you miss it, but in comparison to when we were east of 62 west to where we are now, that eye has shrunk. It's definitely shrunk, which means we're still intensifying. We're definitely still intensifying in the center there. This thing's really bombing out. Really bombing out. It will. It'll likely expand a little bit further once it gets north of all this dry air. Because remember, this system's doing pretty well for itself despite the dry air influence we have just to the north and east of it. The water vapor looks brilliant, though. Can't really detect any of that dry air. The dry air, especially in the upper levels of it, has pretty much been mixed out all together. Wonderful symmetry on it. Even on the water vapor, though, you can see there's a little bit of shrinking going on in that center. So, yeah, we have to be beyond Category 5 intensity by now. No doubt about that. There's a little bit of the dry air. It's actually being bullied away from this system. You can see that it definitely bounced back a little bit, though. If you follow my cursor there it is. You can see at the very tail end of the loop, we start to see it tugging towards the north. Yeah, that eye is definitely consolidating even further. That's how fast this thing is spinning. Incredible. Incredible. Big Dummy Dan, interesting channel name, but to answer your question, no. We have not hit the hottest waters just yet. The hottest waters are still to its west-northwest. We still have that somewhat hot dome off the mid-Atlantic coast and near Bermuda in the subtropics. I can show you that right now on Weatherbell. Weatherbell has a great map for that. There you go. So while we are getting into our warmest waters, we've definitely jumped the gun. We were cooler over the greater tropics, and now we're finally hitting that warm bubble. But as you can see in our anomalies, we still have not hit the warmest waters just yet. Warmest waters are closer to the southeast, the mid-Atlantic, and Bermuda. So pending what the upper air environment looks like up there, we may not have hit the peak of the intensity just yet. We'll have to wait and see. Obviously, it could be very, very, hit or miss. We'll have to see what's coming off the United States. But all in all, yeah, this is a very good configuration for Atlantic activity. We've got our Northeast Atlantic hot bubble again. That has resurfaced. That'll probably help to feed the Canary Current a little bit. The greater tropics, minus some of the convection that's going on over the ITCZ and the monsoon trough. We have above average anomalies through there. And just looking at your water temperatures alone, you can tell that the general track for much of these systems are going to be through here. And that's right in line with what we were looking at even well before the hurricane season started. So once again, for my longtime followers, if you're new to this channel, we have almost 1,200 people watching. If you're new to this channel, I don't like to do this, but everybody and their mother, family, coworkers, friends, they all say sometimes it's okay to toot your horn and talk about your track record. But if you'd been following this channel from January, February, and March, I had mentioned, and you could go to News 6 as well here in Orlando and look at our hotspot video. We had mentioned that the east coast of the United States, the Greater Antilles, and the Bahamas were going to be your hot spot for things to try to track over. And you can see just by looking at the SST configuration here, hurricanes are going to track generally where the hottest waters are. So that's probably why we're finally seeing some Cabo Verde systems, since we've finally warmed up the Atlantic. And now we're tracking more towards the west and northwest. Plus, we're 2 years removed from an El Nino event, and typically we see things go from this to right in the medium. Right in the middle. I was going to say the medium. Let's pull up some ocean heat content as well. I want to see what our OHC is doing up there. Yeah, so we're now getting into our deeper pockets. OHC, despite the sea surface temperature being reinvigorated by the negative PNA out there, when I say negative PNA, I'm just meaning the dominant ridging that was responsible for the heat waves we've seen on and off and the dry spells here in the south and east United States. Despite the subtropical ridging helping to warm the waters out there, our ocean heat content isn't all that impressive the further you gain latitude, which makes sense. It's kind of like when you microwave oatmeal or cream of wheat. You get a really, really hot surface that'll probably give you third-degree burns in the mouth, but it takes a couple stirs and mixing of your ingredients there to get that heat to trickle down lower. We're kind of in our greatest OHC right now for the next 36 to 48 hours, so yeah, this could go back and forth. We do have the sea surface temperatures for continued intensification towards the north, but in terms of subsurface energy, we are in our most favorable setup right now. I also thought this was interesting. I brought this up in a video a couple days ago. If you look at your mixed layer, the mixed layer is not very good over the MDR, which is probably why we've gotten some localized sinking still out there, despite the passage of our Madden-Julian oscillation. It isn't until you climb out of the deep tropics and you come up into the lower subtropics where that mixed layer actually looks a little bit healthier. And essentially, like the term implies, mixed. That's where you have your hot water at the surface down X amount of meters below actually mixed together. It's kind of like an inversion when you look at a skew T. If you're inverted at the surface, you're capped off. There's not really going to be any thunderstorms. But then as you go above that point, you get that instability. In this case, think of it like an inversion underwater. You're going down underwater as opposed to up into the atmosphere. And where you see that area of the mixed layer digging further down in depth, like south of Dominican Republic and Haiti, and then where my little pink circle or oval is drawn, that is where your sea surface temperatures have mixed down further under the ocean surface. So you have more heat content to a certain depth. Think of it like your unstable layer. Whereas out here, even though the tropics themselves have warmed up at the surface, that hot water doesn't go very deep. And I'm pretty sure we just saw that on our ocean heat content as well. Whoops, let me go back. Didn't mean to close the page out. Okay, I guess it went all the way back. Let's go ahead and open that page back up again. Yeah, see, the ocean heat content in the greater MDR is not very good. Not very good. We got a lot of ocean heat content, though, still loaded up to where it matters most for people. No, it's extremely unlikely that it's going to make a loop towards Florida. Extremely unlikely. We would need a huge change in our synoptic pattern, and it doesn't quite work that way. It doesn't work that way. We've seen some changes in the way our synoptics line up, but it doesn't change at the drop of a dime like that. There you go. Our latest intensity guidance does show we're probably going to hit Category 5 intensity if we haven't done so already within 12 hours. And then as it continues to gain latitude and move northwesterly, that's where we start to see things fall off. But we still have a long time to spend with this system. If you look at this, this is 3 days, 4 days, 5 days, 6 days, 7 days. We still have a long ways out. until we can finally say goodbye to Hurricane Erin. Some of these models just keep it at Cat 5 intensity all the way through. I'm pretty sure the ship's guidance as well kept it as a major hurricane pretty much through its life cycle. Let me go to the Super Ensembles page. I'll pull that up for you all. I also like this overlay because it really shows there's that westward nudge right there as well. The track info is showing it was curving towards the north, and then we shifted back towards the west. Let's see, where is the ship's guidance? I believe it's down towards the bottom here. Yeah, there you go. The ships shows it threading the needle between Bermuda and the east coast of the United States and staying as a major hurricane all the way through. It isn't until 5-6 days out where we finally see a decrease in the precipitable water up there because of dry air coming off the upper United States. Gosh, this mouse is stood up. We got an update statement. Hopefully now there it is. Erin has become a Category 5 system. 160 mile an hour winds. The minimum pressure has fallen to near 917 millibars, giving Beryl a run for its money. Giving Beryl and Hurricane Lee a run for their money. Oh, well, Jonathan and I are still doing our thing. We just work separate shifts. I'm in there about like 6, 7 in the morning, leaving by 2 or 3 in the afternoon, and then Jonathan will usually step in around 3 or 4 and work all the way into the evening. We're waiting until there actually is a threat to Central Florida or something big like this to the United States for us to do our twin continuing coverage. That's why we haven't done it yet. We're kind of just biding our time. But there you go. Category 5 Hurricane Erin, the first hurricane of the season, the first major hurricane of the season, and now we have the first Category 5 of the season. Hopefully this is the only one. Hopefully this will be like... Actually, I can't say like last year because we had 2 Cat 5s. Was it 2 or did we have 3? Well, yeah. Technically, we probably did have 3 last year. Jonathan and I are an enormous proponent that Kirk achieved Category 5 threshold, despite the fact that we didn't have recon data in it, just based off the Dvorak technique and satellite imagery, satellite structure of that annular hurricane. That was definitely an annular hurricane. That was probably a Cat 5. So we probably had 3 last year, but National Hurricane Center didn't count Kirk. But there you go. I'm glad that they did the special advisory. That's going to make some headlines out there. For sure going to make some headlines out there. 160 mile an hour Cat 5 hurricane. For those of you who were discounting the hurricane season, we've officially hit we're back criteria. One thing I want to bring up for you now before we get ready to conclude the live stream here very soon, probably in the next 5 or so minutes because I've got a bunch of stuff to do today. Let me take my face out of it. We'll go over some of the key messages. Heavy rainfall at times through Sunday across the northern Leeward Islands, the Virgin Islands, and Puerto Rico may lead to locally considerable flash and urban flooding along with landslides or mudslides. Gusts to tropical storm force in Erin's outer rain bands are likely in portions of the northern Leeward Islands through tonight and over portions of the Virgin Islands and Puerto Rico later today through Sunday. Tropical storm force wind gusts are possible in Turks and Caicos Islands and the southeast Bahamas. Erin is expected to produce life-threatening surf and rip currents along the beaches of the Bahamas, much of the east coast of the United States, and Atlantic Canada next week. So for those of you in the chat saying this poses no risk to the United States, there you have it. One of the key messages clearly states that we're still going to have life-threatening coastal conditions. And so when you, let me pull my face back in, when you mention that it's no threat to the United States, it's a fish storm, this is why I'm very cautious when I use terms like that. We can have 90% of everybody out there saying it's a fish storm, it's not coming here, but there's still 10% folks who could be butthurt or hurt emotionally because something happened in their immediate area. So Still some stuff happening in the chat. By the way, we have over 1,000 viewers right now. If I could get at least another 100 of you to hit that like button so we can get this information out, that would mean the world to me. So we would only need, we've got 1,000 folks in here. I'm asking 100 folks to volunteer as tribute to hit that like button. Let's get the likes up at least around 500 likes. That's all I ask. And then thank you kindly to the folks who have donated a little bit to the chat. I see that there's $6.98 in revenue on there. That means a lot, for sure. TRG Tornado, welcome in. It's great to see you in the chat. It is a Category 5. We just looked at the latest update advisory. Yeah, 160 miles an hour is definitely a formidable system. A very formidable system. And also number 4 there, before we wrap up here on the key messages, interest in Bermuda should continue to monitor the progress of Erin, since there is a risk of strong winds, heavy rain, and high surf by the middle part of next week. Mr. Man JJ, that's okay. And yes, it is already a Cat 5. It was probably already a Cat 5 even when they gave the 11 o'clock update, in my opinion. I'm glad that they went ahead and decided, let's pull the trigger and just update it, upgrade it to Category 5. And it does take a lot to build a Category 5, truthfully. If we're being honest, I'll take us back to the satellite image so we can all take it in together. You know, I know that in recent years, we've seen some very, very rapid intensification with some of these hurricanes, but it does still take a lot to obtain a Category 5 system. So, as has already been touched on in the chat, this is a telltale sign that when conditions are favorable, when we're not looking at any wind shear or an expansion in our high pressure out there leading to sinking, we're now beyond the peak of the dust season as well, coming off of Africa. This goes to show that even though the Atlantic cooled substantially between this time last year and now, it is still very capable of producing some catastrophic hurricanes. That should be the key takeaway here. The key takeaway. And obviously, it's a lot of a lottery system where the next system and the next system and the next system, in terms of where they'll track, the intensity, the variables that dictate the intensity in the track. But if you all want to chalk this up and of your own accord, which you're allowed to, everyone's allowed to. I personally don't consider it a fish storm. We are way too close to hundreds, if not thousands of people right now. But if you want to chalk it up personally as a fish storm because it's not hitting your neighborhood, by all means, I'm not going to take any offense to it. I'm not going to try to persuade or convince anybody. But if anything that you should keep in your back pocket is this: we're not done yet. We're not done yet. There's definitely going to be more named storms after Erin. We're not stopping at 5. This is only 5 of potentially an additional 5, 7 to 10 more named storms, unless you err on the higher side. When Colorado State University released their latest update, and we had our latest seasonal data from the Europopulate a couple days back, well, not a couple days, it's already been over a week, good Lord. All of the computer guidance has suggested that we could be in for a busier second half of the year. We're under a La Nina watch right now as well, which is only going to give us a little friendly nudge in what's called the thermodynamic department of the Atlantic, which means we'll probably end up seeing a bit more favorability in our rising motions where it matters, a little bit of an increase in our sea surface temperatures, this negative NAO pattern that we're probably going to enter through the rest of August into early September is going to end up seeing temperatures rise up a little bit more. Yeah, I mean, it's still moving west. We haven't really seen it gain a whole lot of latitude. Once we get it above 20 degrees north, then I will comfortably say we're starting to lift away from the islands, but we still really haven't changed much since we started the stream and since earlier this morning. And like I said, if you guys want to call it a fish storm, I'm not going to take any offense to it. If anyone asks me what I think of this storm, this is not a fish storm. Just because it's not going down your neighborhood doesn't mean that it's not impacting anybody, and that's what I focus on here on the channel. Not a big fan of total named storms and ACE and all that. I'll track it, obviously, because I do like tracking the tropics, but where there's people in harm's way, that's what it's all about. You can have the eye thousands of miles this way or 3,000 miles that way. If there's anybody being impacted between that 1,000-mile radius or whatever, we're going to be on top of it. So still got more to come. We've got a long hurricane season ahead. And that's the funny part, too. We haven't had a busy August like this in a little while now. 2023 was a busy August for sure. We had Harold, we had Idalia, we had who else was in August? I think that was it, because then we started to well, we can count Franklin, because Franklin made a direct hit in Hispaniola. So that was another one. Technically speaking, yes, the deep warm water is what they consume. It's the deep warm water that keeps them going. They start at the surface. And then work their way underneath. So that's kind of how the two go hand in hand. You need hot sea surface temperatures, and then the secondary layer to that is how far down do those warm waters transition. Because if you hit warm waters at the surface, you'll see a bout of rapid intensification, but it won't be able to last too long. We're also heading through an area right now where we have really good sea surface temperatures and subsurface temperatures, which is probably why we're still deepening and that eye continues to shrink. The eye is definitely still shrinking here. We're kind of at a lopsided perspective here using this GOES satellite, but you can definitely see that the eye and the eye wall have shrunk down, indicating that we have not finished this intensification phase. Brett Weeks, excellent question. So actually, a big system this strong is more influenced by local steering. The main reason why is if you think of it this way. Let's take, y'all ever see Beyblade back in the day? I used to like Beyblade. And I don't mean the show. I mean like back way when I was like, shoot, maybe 12, 13, 14 years old, early 2000s. Y'all remember back when they had the little Beyblade toys where you pull the ripcord and they spin around inside the little thing, the arena, and they bounce off of one another? Same concept. So, for example, if we had a couple Beyblades or some spinning tops or dreidels or whatever, and we spin them inside of an area, if we spin them slowly and they bounce off of one another, what happens? They're going to knock each other back, but they're going to kind of just, they're going to lurch. That's it. They'll fall over. But if you spin those tops really fast, you really rip that ripcord and you get them spinning crazy, what happens when they run into each other? That's where it gets fun, because they'll bounce off of one another and they'll go flying. Kind of the same concept with these hurricanes. When you build such a discontinuity, a gradient between pressure, and as we start to get our 12Z model data in, I'll show you what I mean by that. When you start to build such an enormous discontinuity between pressure values in the atmosphere, that's where things get a lot more influential. So take a look at the anomaly here. If you notice, we have lower pressures to the north and then higher pressures to the west of where our system is. And then as you go through time, see how the colors around Hurricane Erin become a lot more vibrant as it heads towards high pressure that's moving in over the northeast United States? That's your gradient. So wherever there's a weakening in high pressure in front of this system, it's going to follow that immediately. No, there's no such thing as a Category 6. Joshua's journey, I feel that. As long as Erin isn't going on vacation in Florida. Thankfully, summer vacation has already come and gone, so hopefully Erin will get the memo. And then one other interesting thing to show, since we're already here, is we have a couple of other features out there that we're going to continue to track. And the models are doing a fantastic job of showing that rapid transition to a negative NAO, all thanks to Erin's influence as it goes extratropical and builds into a powerful mid-latitude, almost polar cyclone up there just to the south of Iceland and Greenland. If you look at this point in the model data, by the following weekend, 7 days from now, you can see that Erin has fully transitioned to an extratropical mature system. There's your occluded front down there. Warm front somewhere in through there, and then we have a massive cold front extending back helping to bring this surface high pressure down. That's what's going to force us into a negative NAO. And why we want to watch these next two tropical waves, regardless of development, is I do think that they're going to have a better capability of traveling further to the west than Erin was ever given, because that system in of itself is going to force us into a bit of a blocking pattern. You take a look at your 500 millibar heights and you can see it 1,000 miles away. Look at that blocking pattern up over Europe and down to the south of Iceland and Greenland. And then look at how much more ridging you get as a result of that over the western Atlantic, where it matters most. Yes, technically it does. I see another person asking about a weaker Bermuda Azores high warming the Atlantic. There's a lot of different variables that'll warm the Atlantic, and it not necessarily your pressure system, it's what your winds are doing out there. If the winds are weak, it allows the surface of the water to marinate. And it marinates under open sunlight, and that allows it to warm. When you have a long period of lacking winds, lacking wind flow, I'll show you that here as well, which is why I do think, actually, that is a great time to transition to that little touch of the discussion here. We'll go to our zonal wind anomaly here. So if you notice, yeah, there you go. So it looks like as we, wow, that's actually not too bad. So right now, we're a little bit more favorable than where we're going as we get into late August. That's where it's going to get very interesting, because I was initially thinking we were going to close the basin down for a little while once we get towards the very end of this month, but now the Euro is kind of thinking a little bit differently than that. So yeah, see, as we transition to that negative NAO, we're going to start to see more of the warming trend out there. So it's going to be very interesting to see what happens during the second half of this month. Still going to have very good easterly upper level winds coming right off of Africa, supporting the wave train. There's your impact pattern, by the way, more or less. There goes your negative PNA right there, with a massive subtropical ridge over the eastern United States, and then dominant prevailing easterly flow over the tropics and the upper levels. Let's go back to the radar. I'm seeing people mentioning that it's turning north a lot now. I wouldn't say it's turning north a lot, but we're definitely seeing that distinct curve back towards the north, which is good. And now we're kind of getting back on track. And you can see it. I'll go ahead and mark some X's once this thing comes into radar range. We started there. Southernmost point was right there, and now we're here. So there you go. We have that little west-northwest bump, and hopefully now we can just keep it on that track. Let's go ahead and take a look at the icon before we get ready to wrap up here. Let me go over to pivotal weather. Icon should be just, oh yeah, there we go. So icon is fully in. Let's take more of a glance at what the rest of the tropics are going to be doing. We'll go to 700 millibar vorticity. So there goes Erin. Still showing that confident turn towards the north, albeit a little uncomfortable for the east coast of North Carolina. And then the icon does not really favor that first tropical wave coming off of Africa to do much of anything. It's the second one that they're really liking. I've noticed the Euro likes that as well. The Euro really likes that second tropical wave as well. But notice the pattern here. There's your negative NAO. Look at how we've squished high pressure over the western Atlantic. That's why we have to watch this. We're not done with August just yet. Not done with August just yet. And with these next couple of waves coming off, we'll have to watch very closely. So I'm not too sure why our models are well, at least the icon and the Euro, why they're biasing that second wave upstream. Maybe because that's when that Kelvin wave tries to meander back over Africa once we get to the last 7 to 10 days of August. But both of these tropical waves, one there and then this developing one here, according to the icon model, are the ones that we need to pay very close attention to before this month is over with. because there's your negative PNA. There goes what's left of Erin. This could possibly still be tropical, transitioning to extratropical at this point. There's a closed isotherm there, which could still be warm core in nature. But, okay, we are good. For some reason, my OBS just said we were overloading something. But there's your negative PNA. I mean, negative PNA, yes, but your negative NAO right there. Pretty powerful area of Bermuda high pressure that's going to drive things dangerously close to the eastern and southeastern United States. So for those of you seeing the model runs out there, which I know you're going to, especially if 12Z here in the next hour rocks off with another major system out there like the GFS has been cooking, you're going to see model solutions that probably track these things towards Louisiana and Texas and Mexico. I believe last night the GFS at 6Z, or earlier this morning the 6Z GFS, showed something similar to that. We'll go to the 0Z, and we'll take a look at the GFS. So the 0Z develops both of our systems and tracks it just south of Florida up towards the New Orleans, southern Mississippi area. This is definitely a doable solution. Definitely. This is one time where I have to lean with the GFS. And for those of you watching, we still have over 1,000 people in here. I'm going to cover my bases, a little CYA here. I'm not talking about the hurricane, okay? I'm not talking about the storm being the solution. Yes, I can see a landfall here. No, I'm not saying that. That would be very irresponsible of me. But what I'm saying is this pattern here, I have to rock with the GFS. I like the pattern. When you switch over to, we'll go to Climate Prediction Center real quick. Look at our teleconnections, the North Atlantic oscillation. See that? In fact, in comparison to when I looked at this yesterday, looking at our latest update, we're now trending even further into that negative phase. And that's all thanks to Erin. All thanks to Erin. So when I look at the GFS on pivotal weather, I'm not looking at these. So I'm going to just scribble over. I'm not looking at the storms, okay? Because we don't know what's going to happen with those just yet. There's still a lot of volatility in what these things do. So forgive me for my kindergarten doodling, but I want you to take your eyes off the storms. There's going to be a lot of folks out there who are going to try to get your clicks. That sounds very aggressive of me to say that, but they're going to show you the storms. They're not going to show you everything else, okay? The storms aren't there yet. So there's no sense in me trying to tell you, oh, it's going to track over here, it's going to track over there. No. That would be very wrong of me as a meteorologist to tell you that. There's nothing out there yet. Erin is the only active storm on the board. That's the one we have to watch and where we can talk about where it's going. But what I want you to really pay close attention to, which is why I'm full steam ahead with the GFS right now, is the surface pattern with our negative NAO. Typically with a negative NAO, what happens is you see very broad high pressure over the Atlantic. In fact, let's go back to the very beginning. See this? This is more of a positive NAO right now. See how your Atlantic high pressures, it's kind of squished, but it's more zonal out there. It's more west to east. This would be your positive NAO. Positive NAO meaning that we have a very west to east jet stream. It's a very fast-moving jet stream. So as a result, it's a lot easier to get these systems to find weaknesses in your high pressure, and that's why Hurricane Erin's moving to the north. We're in that positive NAO pattern right now, trending towards negative, and we also have a big old blocking ridge out there over the eastern United States, really ramping up our temperatures out here in the south and east. Watch what happens, though, when you transition to your negative phase. Look at what happens to your pockets of high pressure. See that? See how they become a lot more north to south with your more enhanced meridional flow? Now we have an enormous trough here. We have ridging here, high pressure nestled in over Europe and West Africa, and then we have high pressure here over the western and southwestern Atlantic. That's why I was saying earlier, if we end up seeing systems rapidly build off the coast of Africa, they will escape. They'll find that escape route. But right now, that's not what we're thinking. We're thinking that they're going to get going once they start to feel the influence of the mid-level flow around the western quadrant of our Bermuda High, and that's why the GFS is showing these things tracking off towards the west. So we'll have to see what happens with the pattern before anything else. Icon is showing development. Let's see how far in the GFS is. GFS is 39 hours out. let me just point out the initialization is terrible. The initialization is terrible. I wouldn't throw this, I wouldn't throw this model run in the garbage, but that's disgusting. It's showing a 982 tropical storm, a 982 millibar Category 1 hurricane, when we just confirmed with reconnaissance aircraft that this is a Category 5 in the teens, the 9 teens. And this thing initialized almost 80 millibars too weak. That's going to do things to your steering. Remember that. So while we have a much stronger storm, it is more likely to curve out. However, when you have models initializing this terribly, that's going to do things with the rest of your solution. That is a key takeaway. You always want to look at the initialization, which is your initial condition. That's why it's initialization. The term initial obviously means right then and there at the start. It's your initial, kind of like your name. What's your first initial? D for David. First initial. Initialization, the lization, comes from the fact that at 12Z, 18Z, 0Z, we take in what live data we have, put it into the model, and then it starts to build its solution. That's that data assimilation part. Y'all ever see John Carpenter's The Thing, how the thing will assimilate people? It'll infect people and then turn into them as an alien. That's assimilation. It takes real data, ingests it, assimilates it to computer model data, and this is what we get for the initialization, the initial panel of the first hour of the run, and that's terrible. That's 80 millibars too weak, pretty much. 80 to 70 millibars too weak. So let's go over to cyclonic weather. Cyclonic weather typically ingests the GFS a little bit faster, and we'll probably hang tight for just a little bit longer. And then I got to get off of this because the day's going by, unfortunately. I've got so much going on. So we got 2 days in, and it already looks like the GFS is going to get going with our tropical wave out there over the Atlantic. There goes Erin continuing to move west-northwest. We're definitely missing the mark in terms of how strong it is, though. But we'll leave this here for a little bit. We'll give the models a time to come on in. Let's go back to the satellite image and watch this thing. Oh, shoot. It looks like that was maybe just a... starting to arc back towards the west a little bit. See that? We're wobbling. I don't know if the westward track is done just yet. We're wobbling. That was a little wobble. It looks like we might be bending back towards the west. We'll have to give it a little bit longer. We'll give it 10. We'll stay on the stream 10 more minutes. And then we'll call it good. Thank you all very much for the likes, by the way. We have 542 likes in the chat. We've had a couple different people donate, which is amazing. You guys are fantastic. Generous audience. For all of our concurrent viewers right now, one thing you'll learn if you hit that subscribe button is I wouldn't be able to do this without you all. Let me make that very clear. You all make the channel. Okay, you all make the channel. Yes, there's a number of you who are very sweet and kind with your comments that say I'm responsible for the channel, but at the end of the day, it's you all out there that make the channel. If it weren't for you all and your tuning in, your continuous viewage and your support and your generosity, I'd literally just be here on a microphone talking to myself. I can do that with friends and family out there. Just have these conversations and talk to them at home or at work and etc. So you all make the channel. And when I extend generous thanks to you all for the new subscribers, my OG subscribers who have been with me since this time in 23 tracking Adalia, I really, really do mean it. And Lord willing, if we can continue to grow this community and make this channel a much larger footprint out there, I am ecstatic to show you all what I want to give back to you once we have those capabilities. Once we have those capabilities. So remember, the likes that we're getting right now, the viewers in the chat right now, that's all you. You all make the channel. I just provide you the information, and it's humbling and inspiring that you entrust me with this type of information. It's what makes me eager to keep learning and keep getting better at what I do. Never going to stop. But now we got to watch this because it does look like we wobbled south and then north, and now that eye is trying to bump back towards the west. This thing is stubborn. It does not want to go above 20 north. And I bet you 10 to 1 it knows that once it goes above 20 north, it's game over for it. It's going to get sucked north. And I say that funny, okay? That's making a joke. Obviously, this thing doesn't have a mind of its own and all that, but I'm just making a joke. Joshua's journey, we have an idea of where it's going. We have a general idea of where it's going to go. And in fact, let me go back to cyclonic weather real quick because I really haven't even looked at the 6Z. I had the 0Z pulled up just now for the GFS. Oh, look at that. So the 6Z GFS tracks that first wave even further towards the west. I don't really think we're going to see it travel that far south and west, though. I can see it dipping into the northeast, eastern Caribbean, but I don't think we're going to track it through the Caribbean towards the Yucatan Channel. That would be a little intense. That would be if we had a really dominant NAO out there, negative NAO. So now we'll see what the 12Z has to say for us with all the fresh upper air data that we've got in the model. So there goes Erin. Erin is definitely getting picked up. There's the call in your winds, albeit very raggedy. Call in the winds is right there. It's very raggedy between anticyclonic spin over the Atlantic and a big negative PNA over the United States. That's our safe passage there. Feeling the tugging from our shortwave troughs up here. Good Lord, I promise I'm not doing that intentionally. That's my Epic Pen misbehaving. But there's some shortwave perturbations, little shortwave troughs embedded in the upper level flow up there. You've got your negative PNA still in place over the United States. So our temperatures here in the southeast, if you're a central Floridian like myself, our temperatures are going to go up and up. However, as we start to feel the easterly influence of Erin over the next day or two, as well as that PNA really building in up over the United States, that clockwise flow is going to help to bring down some of the moisture associated with that AOI off the East Coast down into Florida, so we should get some increased rain chances today, tomorrow, and especially Monday. That's what I was thinking earlier as well. The eye continues to really shrink, so we'll have to see if it either goes into an ERC or if it's just still gaining intensity. Yeah, look at how tiny that is. We'll zoom way down in. The eye has definitely constricted a little bit further. Look how small that is. Let me stop the loop. I believe there's a way that we can take... The radar is showing that our eye is only about 6 miles wide. A 6 mile wide eye. That has definitely shrunk down a little bit, for sure. I thought there was a looping tool on here as well. Maybe there isn't. But anyways, let me go back and restart the loop. Let me shrink down the frames. We'll go to 30 frames. Dang, where is... If anybody is more familiar with Radar Omega than I am in the chat right now, let me know where I can pause it at a specific time frame. I want to pause it at the beginning and take a slice of what the eye wall or the diameter of the eye was early on in the run. Because that thing has definitely shrunk down. We're at a 6 mile wide eye, so it is still constricting on itself. Is this the 12Z? Yeah, the 12Z is already out to 3 days. This is what we have to watch next. That negative pattern is already getting ready to set itself up. Yeah, it's been a Category 5 for a little while now. Been Cat 5 for a little while now. Thanks again for all the likes, by the way. I see that we've surpassed 600. That's awesome to see. Missing phone calls. Opulent Visions, great question with this system. Definitely watch for your feeder bands. Hold the play button down, Jordan says. Aha, thank you. Excellent, I really appreciate that. So now let's stop it there. Let's create another one of these things. So yeah, we've gone from about a 9.5, 10-mile wide eye early in the radar loop to now between 6 and 8. Depending on where you draw it based on the reflectivity, it has definitely shrunk a little bit. No, I don't think it's going to shift closer towards Florida. It's still biasing the westward side of our track guidance, though, so we'll have to pay close attention to that. That's for certain. GFS actually already looks a little more amped this run with both our tropical waves there. The 12Z run anyways, when you compare the difference between 0 and 6, yeah, 0Z to 6Z to 12Z. Interesting. So the GFS is trending towards slightly more organized tropical waves coming off of Africa. Yeah, I mean, yeah, that's not bad. I wonder if we can see it. So I hate to shift gears right now and start talking about something else, but that looks very familiar to Erin when it first came off of Africa. Let's see if we can see it. That next feature that's coming off of Eastern Africa right now. Oh, yeah, a little bit right there. Yeah. So we definitely have some really nice spins along the intertropical convergence zone and that monsoon trough. So when I say monsoon trough, if you look at your upper level flow here, it's all shooting off towards the west. This is all monsoon trough extension because you get a nice trough thanks to the difluent flow aloft. I don't mean to rhyme. Extending off of West and Southwest Africa. So you have both a combination of the intertropical convergence zone down in through here, and then an extension of the monsoon trough that helps to kind of keep things all stuck up in there. But yeah, there's some really good spin right there, and it looks like a nice little mid-level spin getting ready to come off of Africa there with these tropical waves. Here's that next one. So yeah, they're looking fairly decent. The only thing is, are they going to make it past this wave of Saharan air right there? If they don't immediately pull north and pivot north just like Erin did. Erin found that lottery, won the lottery ticket. When it pivoted north off the ITCZ and monsoonal trough, it found the sweet spot. But right now, we've got a dense layer of sinking dry air right up to the north there. You can see it plain as day on my pen. You can see it plain as day on the satellite there. Really dense layer of Saharan air. Although it does look like we're starting to mix it out just a little bit. You can see the border here advecting, moving off towards the west. So we'll have to wait and see. It might not be able to do too much for us. Here's your RGB water vapor satellite. And yeah, the air is not that dry. You can see the bulk of our really significant dry air is well off towards the west of where our waves are coming off. Here's one. Here's two. So our waves are getting ready to meander off the coast of Africa right now. They're fairly healthy too, so we're going to have to wait and see. But right now, at least initially, remember that one term, initialization, initially speaking, they are trending towards a bit more amped up in terms of their organization, their early structure. There we go. Yeah, it looks like GFS is going to start to develop them again. 12Z, there we go. Got one there and then one back here. We just saw those on the actual satellite. Let's go check out what the Canadian model is doing. We got 36 hours in for the Canadian model. We'll go to 700 millibars. Yeah, the Canadian also sees them. So we'll have to see. Let's see, Mark, excellent question in terms of eye wall replacement cycle. I don't think we're going to replace it just yet. It doesn't look like we're going to ERC just yet. It looks like we're still just intensifying. This thing is probably still deepening. It looks like we're evening out, though, and moving at more of like a 280-degree direction right now. After that south bump and the east bump, that little dip, it looks like we're evening out at about 280 degrees. So west-northwest. Hopefully we can get it above the 20-degree latitude line there. Carmen, welcome in. Another OG from back in the day. Taking a moment to watch on her 15-minute break. Yeah, it does seem like we're moving more west-northwest. We're not moving northwest, but we're not moving generally west. It looks like we had another little bump, and now we're ironing out the pattern, moving west-northwest. Still refuses to climb past 20 degrees latitude, though. So, all right, let's see what the GFS does. Yep, here we go. Look at that mid-level pattern, though. This is what I'm talking about. At least early on, these waves are not going to escape and find the same latitudinal direction as Erin did. There's a wave right there getting ready to organize. There's a wave right there on the GFS. And this is what I'm looking at primarily, this high-pressure ridge that's building in behind both of our tropical systems in the Atlantic. So early on, before 60 west longitude here, these features are definitely going to hug that easterly trade wind flow as they move through the MDR. So they're not going to follow the same general path as Erin did. So we're going to have to pay attention to these next ones. Still going to keep watching Erin. That's for certain. I feel bad for doing this, but I'm going to go ahead and start closing out the live stream so I can get myself back together. Been on for about 2 hours. I think that's a pretty nice live stream. Really good live stream. We are starting to see a positive trend a little bit away from our islands, which means that we will definitely start to see impacts trend away. As long as we can hold that, direction. Let me pull you back up. We'll take a look at the radar imagery, see what's going on out there. Close this off. There we go. Yeah, so we're moving generally west-northwest. I think, as a matter of fact, we also have that tool on here as well. Oh, nope, I don't want to do that. Okay, fine. That's a track there. I thought that was going to help give us... Okay, anyways, I'm just messing around now. So... that is our assignment. That is our assignment. So we're moving west-northwest at about 280 degrees. We're starting to slowly but surely tread water away from the Leeward Islands and the U.S. BVI as well as Puerto Rico, but you're still going to see tropical-style impacts throughout the day today, guaranteed. It's going to happen, especially when your more aggressive feeder bands wrap in from the west side, coming in out of the north. That's the one thing that you have going for you all out there. If you're watching or you know people out there who are watching and can get in touch with them, let them know that if they have a way of keeping their situational awareness about them and looking out at this stuff from a safe distance, obviously, a safe place, everything will be coming in out of the north. It's not going to come in out of the south. It's not going to come in out of the east. It's all going to be coming in out of the north and west. So that's the direction that you want to pay attention to see things coming in off the horizon, especially if you're on the immediate coast of some of these island nations out there. And hopefully over the next 6 to 12 hours, I'd say next 3 to 6 hours, we'll finally put some distance between us and the northern Leeward Islands and start to see conditions slowly improve before this system really begins to expand out. Then, for our next tropical update, when I sit down to record that, we're going to start to slowly shift gears and take a look at what's happening down there in the MDR, especially with our latest 12 Zulu model run. This is just inside 5 days. You can see the GFS is already ramping up a feature for the Lesser Antilles, and then another one to the west of the Cabo Verde Islands. But this is what I want us to really watch for. I'm going to make sure that for our next several videos, we're looking at this stuff here. Where is it? This one. We're going to be watching what happens with high pressure over the eastern and central Atlantic and how it interacts with Erin moving off towards the north, because what goes up has to come down. So eventually, as Erin's ball of low-pressure energy moves north, high pressure is going to have to build back down towards the south to replace it. So this is going to be our key feature that we watch over the next few days, and we'll have to see if National Hurricane Center gives us an AOY before the weekend is over with. Oh my goodness, there we go. Because that is definitely going to increase our easterly component over the MDR. So even if they aren't developing, the tropical waves are still going to meander closer to the Lesser Antilles, and then they're going to find that sweet spot because it seems like the Western Atlantic has been a bit more favorable than the actual deep tropics. So we'll have to wait and see. There you go. So there you have it. Within 5 days, the GFS has a tropical depression, if not tropical storm, just to the immediate east of the Lesser Antilles. Let's go ahead and check on the Canadian model, see what this model is doing. Not liking that first wave, though. You can see it's really not, they're not really latching on to the first wave. Kind of. What did the 0Z do? Yeah, so the 0Z is liking the upstream wave as well. So we're going to have to see which ones our models latch onto, because the GFS is very bullish with that first leading wave. That does look fairly healthy on satellite. The GFS did nail Erin, the precursor wave with this system, so we'll have to give it a little bit of time. But anyways, folks, I hate to do this. We're now at that 2-hour mark. We're going to go ahead and wrap up, and we'll see you again very soon. I'm hoping that I don't have to break live once again throughout the day today. If anything does happen, I will find a point to do so. However, right now, I want to say between now and 6 p.m. local time here in Central Florida, which should be about 6 or 7 o'clock out there as well for you guys in the islands, you're going to see positive trends in the right direction, especially once you can get beyond some of those more aggressive feeder bands on the south side of the system. Then what I want us to do, because we obviously have threats within the next 5 days for our next tropical discussion, especially the next tropical update video I upload, we're going to talk a little bit more about what's coming down the pike. We're going to watch what's coming down the pike with these next couple of systems, because you can see here on the GFS, for example, very early in the model run, we're already flaring something up, so we can't chalk this up to the GFS being the GFS. We can't really say that this is la-la land. If we were at 250, 300 hours in seeing development, then heck yeah, we can throw the car on cruise control. But the fact that we already have some stuff wandering off of Africa and we're still in the favorable phasing of our upper level pattern, then we'll have to pay close attention to that, and you can count on us here in the Weather Center to keep you abreast of all that type of stuff. So yeah, thank you to everybody who tuned in this morning. I sincerely appreciate it. It's great to have everybody in for a conversation. I'm sorry that the briefing didn't quite get to everyone's question. If you are in the chat right now and you do have questions, drop them in the comments section down below upon the conclusion of this live stream, and I'll get back to you at my earliest convenience. I'll make sure to answer any questions, comments, or concerns that you may have, especially throughout the day today. I'll try to prioritize that over the next couple of hours, and then I'll also heavily digest what's going on with our model data and have a better answer for you as we go through Sunday and then especially Monday. And a great question, Jim Dog. This is a gift for me. This says, hold on to your butts, with good old Samuel Jackson there. This is my hold on to your butts shirt. Let me see if I can get there it is. Hold up. Well, it fell. But anyways, this is my hold on to your butts shirt. The classic catchphrase. But all right, that's all she wrote, everybody. Please stay safe out there. We are into hold on to your butts mode down there in the islands, but hopefully we can let off that here very momentarily, and then we'll have to see what happens upstream of that. Even looking at some of the computer models right now, very, very interesting trends. I wonder when National Hurricane Center is going to bite and put an area of interest down there. So we'll see. Until next time, folks, you know the saying. Thank you all for your continued support. Thank you to all the new subscribers. Thank you to all the viewers this morning. Have a great rest of your Saturday. Stay safe out there. Keep me posted in the comments what goes on in your neck of the woods. But until next time, this is Weather Center Nazario, signing out.